Hey, how's it going, everybody? I apologize for my voice in advance. I'm just dealing with a little bit of a sickness here, but hopefully I'll get over it soon. I'm really excited to make this video of my top 10 movies of 2022 because this has been a great year for movies. Going into this year, there were a lot of movies I was hyped for, and a lot of those movies delivered. And then there was a lot of movies I didn't really hear about or see until a trailer came out for them, and I ended up watching and I really enjoyed. So 2022 for me is one of the best year of movies that we've had for a while. I think the last year I thought was just absolutely spectacular is maybe 2019. So 2022, great year. I kind of had a tough time limiting it down to just 10 because of how many great movies came out this year. But without further ado, let's get down to the list. And at number 10 on my list, I have The Menu. And this is a movie, going into it, I was excited to watch just because I'm a huge Anya Taylor-Joy fan. But Ray Fiennes in this movie was also spectacular. And the way that Anya Taylor-Joy and Ray Fiennes, like their dynamic in the way that they would go after each other in this movie, it was almost like a cat and mouse game. I really enjoyed that. And going into the movie, I mean, I expected it to be good, but I didn't expect it to be as funny as it was. And I didn't expect it to be as paced as well as it was. And just everything about this movie, including the ending shot, not going to give anything away for those who haven't seen The Menu yet. But when the credits of a movie roll and you're left sitting there just like, you know what, damn, that was a great movie. That's what I experienced with The Menu. At the end of the day, when I was kind of trying to pile up this top 10 list, there's a lot of other movies I wanted to put in here, Dick. Just as an honorable mention, just so you know, this movie's not going to be in the top 10, but I was Glass Onion I really enjoyed. And Glass Onion almost took this movie's spot, but the reason I gave it to The Menu is because at the very end, I sat there in the theater with a smile on my face, thinking, you know what? That was a damn good movie. And at number 9 on my list, I have The Fablemans. And this is a movie I was looking forward to. I mean, forget about the trailers. The trailers were great. But mostly, I mean, Steven Spielberg is directing it. And I've never been bored while watching a Steven Spielberg movie. I always know that even when Spielberg isn't having his, even if he makes a movie that's not the greatest or if it's just okay or whatever, it's always at least entertaining. So that's what I love about Spielberg. And going into this movie, I was excited because I know some people are kind of tired of the whole, oh, how films are made or people like how they fall in love with film. Because I know we've been getting a lot of films like that this year. And especially, I mean, this year in particular, we've gotten a few films like that. And I understand that it's kind of maybe being overplayed, but I think Spielberg just did something really, really cool with The Fablemans about all of us that love film, and especially those of us who want to be in film or work in film in some capacity, whether you want to be an actor or director or just any sort of thing behind the scenes, whatever you want to do. The Fablemans, to me, encapsulates just exactly what that movie magic is, and that's what I really liked about it. Because of all the movies about Hollywood and about making movies, one thing I think The Fablemans kind of sets apart from that, it sets itself apart because it really just captures the magic of movie making. And it does it through our main character's eyes as a teenager. And we're watching him, and this is obviously supposed to be Steven Spielberg as a young boy, and we see that magic in the actor's eyes, and we see that magic around all our characters and everything in The Fablemans. And ultimately, it's just a really feel good movie, and it's absolutely great. Number 8 on my list, I have Halloween Ends, and I am very surprised. Going into this year, I was not looking forward to Halloween because as much as I liked the 2018 Halloween movie, I hated Halloween Kills. I don't really have anything good to say about Halloween Kills. I think I don't. I just don't have anything good to say about Halloween Kills. So going into Halloween Ends, I wanted to watch it, wanted to see how the conclusion and everything came to be. And if you've watched my review on Halloween Ends, you know that I was surprised by this movie. And I was surprised in a good way. I went into it and I was like, you know what? This movie's actually really, really good. And I know it's really kind of divisive because you have one character and Corey Cunningham kind of taking the majority of the screen time in the movie, and Michael Myers kind of takes a little bit of a backseat. But I like that because as much as Michael Myers does take a backseat in this movie, I mean, at the end of the day, he's still he's still Michael Myers, and he comes out to play, and that's what I liked about this movie is it tried to do something different. And yeah, we've seen Halloween do stuff different in many ways, different times. Like we've seen the whole cult storyline, and like Halloween 6, I think it was, and then obviously Halloween 3 did something vastly different. But what I really liked about Halloween Ends is it kind of took Michael out of the picture for a little bit, and kind of had this other character come in, and it really kind of, as much as Halloween Kills tried to sit there and I think kind of act like how the town is going to deal with everything. I think Halloween Ends did a better job with that and kind of how is this town going to deal with grief? How is it going to deal with the fact that Michael Myers has now been gone for a year or two, and people are always looking for someone to blame, and now they're putting that blame on Corey Cunningham. So to me, Halloween Ends was a great time in the theaters, and ultimately it was a top 10 movie of the year for me. Number 7 on my list, I have Scream, and this is one of the first movies that came out this year. It came out in January. It almost doesn't even feel like it came out this year because it's been so long ago. I'm a huge fan of the Scream franchise. I don't dislike any of the movies. If you had to ask me what the weakest Scream movie was, I would probably obviously say Scream 3. But I really enjoyed the Scream movie. I mean, just seeing it in the audience, and that was one of the best parts about this movie. Is watching it, whether you're watching it with friends or watching it as part of the audience member of a theater. It's a great crowd going experience, and everything about this movie I just think was absolutely amazing. Because when Wes Craven passed away and then they were making this, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, well, I mean, yeah, as long as you have the kind of like some of the same core writers together, and we have the same characters returning and everything, I was like, I guess it can be good. But I was kind of worried about, because with all these other things we've been seeing these days, whether it is other franchises have been trying to be revived or anything like that, a lot of them have kind of been hit and miss. So I was really worried. I was like, okay, here we go, Scream movie, 12 years after the fourth one. How is it gonna be? And honestly, I was surprised by it because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. The kills were great in the movie. Ghostface is always cool. I really like Ghostface. And really the what the killers ended up being, who they ended up being, really threw me off. I really thought I had it pinned down, and at one point I did have one of them pinned down. No spoilers in case you haven't seen it. And but then I second guessed myself. I was like, "There's no way it's that easy." That I ended up being that person. But I was a really fun movie going experience. It's a great movie. I definitely own it. I've seen it a few times since I've owned it, and it's even though it came out at the beginning of the year, it's stayed strong on my list, and it remains in the top 10 at number 7. Number 6 on my list, and this is a movie I've never seen any of the Despicable Me movies, and I haven't seen. I think there was one Minions movie that came out before this, and I never watched that. But the Minions: The Rise of Gru. This is a movie I purely just wanted to see based on the trailer. I watched the trailer. I forget what movie the trailer played before when I went and watched it, but it made me laugh, and I was like, okay, the trailer has me sold. I got to go watch this movie. And I never actually did like a review on this movie because I didn't see it until like maybe like 3 weeks after it came out, and I went and watched this movie, and I couldn't believe how hilarious it was. I was laughing the entire time. I went and saw it with a bunch of friends, and and when I was compiling this list, I was kind of thinking about a lot of rewatchability aspects. And the thing with Minions is I'm not sure if I'm ever going to go back and watch this Minions movie because my experience in the theater was so good. I almost don't ever want to like tarnish it. I don't want to watch it a second time and not laugh as much. But even if I never watch this Minions movie again, I have to say it's definitely, it has to be my top 10 of the year because I had so much fun in the theater watching this movie. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It's probably I mean, there's been funny movies that come out this year. Like Bullet Train was pretty funny. You had the Nicolas Cage movie, which was pretty funny. But Minions, I am telling you, I laughed more at Minions than I did with any of those other movies. And so for me, Minions was a pleasant surprise, and it makes it on my top 10 list at number 6. All right, and now we get to my top 5, and starting at number 5, we have Barbarian. And this is a movie. Really, I went into this movie. The trailer doesn't give a whole lot away, which I like. And I went into it thinking, okay, this is probably going to be a pretty decent horror movie. And hearing good things, went to this movie on opening night, and I was like, damn, this is a fine movie. Everything about Barbarian is great. Yes, the opening. I mean, to me, it's not slow in a bad way, but it does take its time building in the beginning, and that's what I really loved about it, because when the payoff starts happening, when stuff really starts to hit the fan, it's glorious. Barbarian was funny. I didn't expect it to be as funny as it was. Justin Long absolutely carried the movie. And that's not to say that anybody else was bad, but Justin Long's character, I just loved him on Barbarian. And for me, Barbarian was probably one of the next to Minions, probably the biggest surprise of the year for me, because I went into it really just expecting to get like a pretty decent horror movie, and I came out of it getting really not great horror movie, laughing a whole bunch, and the theater going experience that I had with this movie, everybody around me. I mean, it was such a fun theater going experience, and that's how all horror movies are really at the end of the day, when you go on opening night and you have a fun horror crowd with you. But Barbarian, story was awesome, the acting was awesome, and Justin Long itself definitely in my top 5 of the year. Had to put it here, so that's Barbarian at number 5. And at number 4, we have the Batman. And for a while there, the Batman was number 1 on my list until it was dethroned a month later by the number 3, which I will talk about here in a second. But obviously, I love the Batman. And all my reviews, basically, since I've had the 4K, which is, I think I got it back in May, you've been able to see the Batman behind me over there. I have the 4K. I have the kind of collector's box set of it. I think Robert Pattinson is the best Batman we've gotten. I'm not going to really talk to him. I mean, probably not Bruce Wayne, because he's not really Bruce Wayne too much in the movie. But as far as just the Batman itself, I think he just did such a great job nailing that role. I think the story is great. I do think the movie, I agree with people when they say it could have been shorter. I definitely think it could have been 15 to 20 minutes shorter. I really like the third act of the movie as well. I know a lot of people kind of criticize the fact that the third act kind of seems like it's tacked on. I don't think it's tacked on at all. I think it just feels like it runs a little long because there was so much else going on in the movie. And I feel like they kind of probably could have trimmed it down a little bit. But ultimately, the Batman is great. The music is great. The cinematography is amazing. Matt Reeves did a fantastic job in this movie. Robert Pattinson absolutely sold his performance. I love everything about the Batman. It was really, like I said, the only critique I have of the movie, it just runs a little bit long. But that's kind of been, if you've been watching my reviews all year on this channel, that's kind of been a running theme in 2022, is that just about every movie has kind of run just a little bit too long. But ultimately, the Batman is at number 4. And at number 3, we have the movie that dethroned the Batman for a while when it came out a month later, and that is X. A movie that I love talking to people about, because it's got so many people are on so many different pages of this. Some people like Pearl more than X, some people like X more than Pearl, and some people just hate X in general. I know people who think X. I know people who have like X on like their top 10 worst movies of the year. I know someone that walked out watching X. They thought it was boring. I don't understand that. I think X is absolutely fantastic, but you know, to each their own. X, to me, I went to this movie not even watching a trailer. I went and watched this movie because I saw it about a week after it came out. And the reason I wanted to see it is because, well, number one, A24 usually, I like most of their movies for the most part. So wanted to see it for that, but also I heard a lot of people kind of talking about it, and I didn't hear them talking too much in depth about it. So I remember getting my tickets on the AMC app, and I saw kind of like a brief summary of what it's about, like people going to shoot a porno on this like old people's property, and like some crazy stuff starts to go down. I was like, okay, it's only like an hour, 40 some minutes. I'll go check this out. I have AMC A list. Let's go see what this is all about. And I loved it. From the very opening shot of this movie, I was sold. The music had me sold. The acting, Mia Goth, I still think not in this movie, but in Pearl in particular. I'll just go off track here for a second. Mia Goth for me, as far as this year goes, is one of the best. I think is one of the best acting performances as far as an actress goes. Kind of up there with Florence Pugh and Don't Worry, Darling. I think my Mia Goth is just absolutely amazing in both X and Pearl. And to me, X is another reason I really liked X is because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, the 1974 version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And to me, X just had that gritty feel, and I was getting I was just getting that vibe from X, and I really enjoyed that, and I really liked the last half an hour of X. I thought it was really fun, thought it was really well done, and hats off to Ty West because he did a great job. And number two on my list is a movie that just recently came out, and that's going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. And it took me a while to put this on my list. So as of this recording, I have seen Avatar: The Way of Water 3 times in theaters. All 3 times have been in IMAX 3D, and each time has been with with different people, seen with different groups of people. And the theater going experience for Avatar: The Way of Water is absolutely amazing. But the reason that this movie is number two isn't really just the theater going experience. I mean, the experience of the movie itself, yes, but not just the theater going experience. This movie, I felt like I was in Pandora, and that's something that James Cameron is so great at. That's something that really stands out when you use 3D in these Avatar movies. Even when I went and watched the re-release a few months ago, I felt encapsulated in this world. So I get down in my seat, the movie starts, and I feel like I'm on Pandora, and I'm into the story. Yeah, the story is basic. It's in a lot of ways, it's kind of the first one rehashed, except the character development is way better, and I feel like you care about more of the characters this time. But ultimately, what I really like about Avatar: The Way of Water is just the experience of watching the movie, because each act is basically an hour long. You got the first act, which is first hour, second act is the second hour, and the last act of the movie is basically one long battle sequence, and it's all these payoffs. The movie can be slow at times, and it does feel its length. It definitely does feel like a 3 hour movie or a little bit over a 3 hour movie, but it doesn't feel like that way in a bad way. It never feels like it's necessarily dragging or anything. Everything happens the way it's supposed to happen, and the story beats that happen, I mean, it gets you into the story. And like I said, everything has a payoff. Something bad happens, and then some character does something really, really terrible, and then that character gets what's coming to them. And James Cameron has always been so good at doing that with all of his movies. And I really liked Avatar: The Way of Water for that reason, because I was so invested into the story. I was so invested into that world. And when the movie ended, kind of like earlier when I was talking about the menu, I sat there and I was like, damn, I want more. And that's why I'm so happy that they filmed the third one at the same time, because here in 2024, we're going to get Avatar 3, and I cannot wait. So Avatar: The Way of Water is my number two of the year. And at number one, this should come as no surprise for people who have been watching me for a while. Number one is Top Gun Maverick. This is a movie I saw 8 times in the theaters. And most recently, I saw it a few weeks ago. Went and saw it in IMAX. They brought it back in IMAX, and I said, you know what? I want my last viewing of this movie in the theaters to be in IMAX. They're bringing it back. I have to go watch it again. And so I've seen it 8 times in theaters, watched it 2 times at home, and I've watched like just scenes from the movie countless other times. I think this movie is perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with this movie. Seriously, I don't. The pacing is well done. The length of this movie, I mean, it just goes by so fast. Everything about this movie is amazing. And to have Tom Cruise playing Maverick again and just seeing him in that role, it's really, he does just such a great job embodying that role and playing this aging guy who, is kind of like, in over his head in many ways. And obviously if anybody in real life was doing the stuff he was doing, he'd probably be discharged, obviously. But in this movie, just to see someone, all the odds are against him. Nothing's going the way he plans, and then at the end of the day, everything kind of comes together and everything. It's not, and it doesn't happen in like a cheesy way. Because in the first Top Gun movie, as much as I love the first Top Gun movie, the first Top Gun movie in many ways is just a very cheesy '80s movie. But I really like Maverick because Maverick, it's still that same vibe. I mean, if Tony Scott was still alive, I think Tony Scott would just be very proud of this movie. And ultimately, with Top Gun Maverick, it's a great theater going experience. It's a great story, even as simple as it is. And the action in this movie is great. I mean, the fact that they were actually up there and in real jets and everything like that, it makes the experience so much better. And I love that they included the IMAX scenes on the 4K disc and everything, because being able to kind of get that experience in the theater at home, it's so important, because really you need those action scenes for this movie to work in general. I feel like those people that were up in the air, they're up in the air in real life, and the jet, and they're really in the jets. I mean, it really sells you on the movie, and it just really kind of pulls you more. And kind of like when I was talking about with Avatar: The Way of Water, Top Gun Maverick does the same thing with you. You feel like you're in the cockpit with those pilots, and you love the characters. You don't want anything bad to happen to the characters, and the character development was great. And at the end of the movie, I just had a huge smile on my face as a Maverick and Penny are just kind of flying off into the sunset there. And Lady Gaga when I first heard that song before the movie even came out, I thought it was kind of cheesy. And then hearing that song actually play towards the end of the movie, I actually really enjoyed it. So ultimately, Top Gun Maverick is number one. It's been number one since since I saw it in May. Nothing has dethroned it. I went into Avatar wondering if Avatar would, and ultimately Avatar didn't. But listen, Top Gun Maverick is my number one of the year, and I can't stress enough how great 2022 has been. But anyway, that has been my list for the top 10 movies of the year. If any of you guys have your own list, leave them down in the comment section down below. And like always, I hope to see you back in my next video.